Hello, I'm Harvey, host of Franchising Brand Stories.
And I'm Ruth, the Chief Operating Officer for Home Instead in the UK.
And welcome to Franchising Brand Stories. This is the show, and I'm going to do it where we get under the hat of some of the top brands in the UK and in the world. And it's live. It's live if it's April 10th, 5:15 for about 50 minutes. So if you are here, pop a comment in, say hello, because if you're somebody who's looking at investing in franchising, this is for you. This is where we get beyond those brochures, behind those brochures, and meet the people that are at the heart of these organizations. So the brand story that we are going to hear today is Home Instead with the lovely Ruth Brown. Ruth, welcome to Franchising Brand Stories.
Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. Well, look, let's get into things, and we always start the same way. And this is to give people who are viewing this live or people who are looking at this in the future a nice overall sort of description of what Home Instead is. So, what is Home Instead?
So, Home Instead is a home care franchise. We look after mainly older people in their own homes to enable them to stay at home for as long as possible. We deliver everything from 1 hour of companionship all the way through to specialist and end of life care and everything in the middle. And our goal is to be the partner for a family and a loved one in their aging journey to ensure that they get everything that they need and to live really well at home in their later years.
Oh, it's a lovely description, actually. My wife was involved in care for many years, and it's such an important thing. I love the fact there that you talk about companionship. It's really important, really important. And, it adds a lot, not only to the people that you're helping, but the wonderful people that are doing that helping. It's really a strong part of the job. And that's fantastic. Yeah. Love it. So the other thing that we like to do at the beginning, because again, if you are a prospective franchisee, if you are somebody that's thinking about whether to invest in a franchise, it's just good to again understand where you are as a business in terms of what parts of the UK can you be found and how many franchisees have you got?
So we're 20 years old in the UK. We're celebrating our 20-year anniversary this year. We have 260 Thank you very much. We have 260 franchises across the UK. So we're 95% covered in the UK. Still have about 30 territories available. So obviously still looking for the right franchise partners to come and work with us in those territories. But I think it's important to note that we are part of a global brand. So we were founded in the US back in 1994. And so now we have around probably about 1,000 franchises worldwide, primarily in the US, Canada, and the UK. But we also have franchise operations in Germany and Japan and Singapore as well.
Wow, fantastic. It's really good to know, and it's really good to understand whereabouts in the UK and, how old you are. All of these things are really important when you're thinking about this because, as a prospective franchisee, it's good to understand, where those territories might sit. I imagine you have some that come up for resales and those when people have concluded things. Is that also part of the business?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, we're 20 years old and we are a mature franchise. So, we've got a number of franchisees now coming through their own franchise journey and they are looking at exiting. So, we have circa between 5 and 7% of our network up for resale at any one point in time. So in terms of numbers, that's between 15 and 18 franchises up for resale, ranging from, a wide range of investments. And we also have a number of multi-unit opportunities available as well. So we're looking for people who want to run a single territory, and we also, and they can do that through buying a new territory or a resale. Or we're also looking for people who want to run a portfolio of Home Instead franchises, and that's a relatively new part of our franchise journey.
Fantastic. That's really good. If you have just joined us today, this is Franchising Brand Stories. And today we are hearing the story of Home Instead. And Franchising Brand Stories is brought to you by FranRec, specialist staff and executive recruiters to the UK franchise industry. So we are now going to jump in the time machine, if that's all right with you, Ruth.
Okay,
and
does that mean I look younger for this
Yes, maybe it could be. I like that as an idea. Yeah, precisely. Yes, it'll light up, spin round, and we're going to go right back in time. So give us a story now of both where it began with Home Instead, but also where your journey began.
Okay. So I think the important thing to mention first is, like, when we came over to the UK 20 years ago, we were brought over under a master license. And so the founders, who were Sam and Trevor Brocklebank at the time, basically bought the rights to the brand and the model to operate in the UK. And so they bought the rights in 2005, established the first business in 2006, the first franchise in 2006. But one of the things that's really important to say is, when Trevor bought the model over, the idea, and you mentioned it before, companionship, or we like to say relationship-led first or relationship-based care, that was very, very unusual in the UK. So he was pioneering a new type of care. And so in the first kind of 5 years, he was proving out the model, understanding how it fitted with the regulators in the UK, and really kind of building those first franchises up by partnering with what we call the pioneers, those early adopters. And, you know, he was revolutionising the way that care was being delivered across the UK. I don't know if you know much about social care, Harvey. I know you mentioned your wife has been in social care, but the way that social care was and still is structured is very much kind of like short visits, task-based focused care. Lots of people go in, not the same kind of team quite often. And, you know, for people who are older or have got dementia, that can become quite confusing. So what Trevor said he was going to do, he was going to revolutionise the way that care was being delivered. And so he created a model of consistent people going in, having time to be able to build the relationship, really investing in training of staff, not wearing uniforms, and just focusing on that relationship-led piece first. And so those first few years was very much around developing the market in that kind of relationship-led space. And he did really, really well. I think when I joined, we had between probably 30 and 40 franchises on board. So I joined in 2010. And my background is franchising. So I previously worked for Thornton's, the confectioners, opened about 80 of their franchise stores with them, predominantly the coffee stores. And so I came in with a franchise recruitment background, but my role in Thornton's was also support of that very first period of trade. So setting them up, designing the store and getting them off the ground. So I came in 2010 with kind of that experience under my belt. And one of the things that really appealed to me with what Trevor was trying to do was the kind of the difference of care that he was trying to offer. I was personally going through my very first taste of care with my gran. So I truly understood what he was trying to do versus what we'd received, if that makes sense. And so just completely fell in love with the model. And so I basically got on the Home Instead bus, put my seatbelt on. And then from 2010 to about 2014, we recruited 50% of the network as it stands today. So we had a large recruitment drive, never compromised on the quality of the franchisee, but very quickly scaled the business. And what that meant was that we had the pioneers plus this tranche of franchisees who are fizzing with real passion about why Home Instead was different and really wanting to make a difference across the UK. And that really set us then in good stead to kind of pioneer this relationship-led care and develop the services that we now offer today.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, it's really interesting to sort of hear that story, and understand. I think what was really important in that is the fact that you said it was relationship based, not task based. And I think when I said to you about my wife having worked in the care sector, I think that's very much one of the takeaways she had, that it
Yeah,
wasn't enough time to be able to deliver the care that you want to. And I think as a caregiver, you want to spend time, giving that care to the people that need it is part
yeah,
of the passion. You're mentioning that word,
yeah,
and that certainly is going to be coming across when it's delivered
100%.
to those people. So love
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
I think it would be a good idea, again, if you're thinking about investing in a franchise business, it's good to understand the type of people that might invest in this. We've spoken about carers. Is it mostly people from that have been a carer, or do you find? I mean, your own experience there was interesting. You came from a position of receiving that service. So
yeah.
what type of people typically choose?
So one of the things that we've always said, Harvey, is that you don't have to have care experience to be a franchisee. So we have franchisees from a complete mix of background. We have teachers and accountants and people who have come from a care background. I think the skill that we are looking for, or the number of skills that we're looking for, and I've mentioned there, is the passion for what we do. This is too hard if you're not passionate about it, because you are dealing with vulnerable people's lives. And so if you haven't got a genuine desire to make a difference to the people's lives that you're working with, then this isn't the right franchise opportunity for you. But with those skills and background, we also look for people who are really good people managers and people leaders. They really know and understand how to grow and develop a team, and also with that have got good commercial acumen. They need to know how to run a business, or at least be open to learn the skills to run a business. So it's not necessarily a background that we look for. We look for those attributes that can actually be molded into a Home Instead franchisee.
Well, that's great. I think it's very important to think about attributes and characteristics rather than experience, because, of course, with a franchise model, you're being delivered some of those tools to do it.
Yeah,
And if you've got those right stuff at heart, that. I mean, you've mentioned the word passion a couple of times, and it's a word that comes up on this a lot. And I think if you've got that passion, and I think there's industries where it's in common. Care is absolutely one of them. Children's services is another. Pet
yeah,
services is one.
yeah,
And all of them, the people at the heart of those businesses, the franchisees and the people that are running the franchise, have got real passions for these industries.
yeah,
They've come from a story. They've
yeah.
come
And
from
I
heart.
think that's the secret sauce, isn't it? Like, that's our USP. Like, one of the things that we say a lot at Home Instead is people can copy what we do and how we go to market, but they'll never copy the people we are. And that those people, franchisees, national office staff, the care pros, the key players in the office, that's the stuff that makes Home Instead different, and that's what creates the culture that we've got today. And that is all very much cemented on generally wanting to do a really, really good job and make a difference to the people that we care for. We have a saying at Home Instead, is the profit's the reward for what you do, it's not why you do it. And I think that is really important. If you're here just to make money, this is not, for me, I don't believe this is the right business to go into. You've got to really want to make a difference, because when you want to make a difference, the success follows. And that's something that we've embedded from the very beginning, really.
I think that's really important, because again, we're going to come on in a minute to the type of people that you're looking for, but when you are looking through the characteristics of someone and the motivators, the drivers, because
Yeah,
if you are looking at franchising and looking at your options, and your main key driver is you want to make money, and that's it, then it's fine to just say, look, this isn't the one, because that isn't the main driver here. The main driver comes from that early days of relationships, and that being the key, in time and care.
And I think if that's your only driver, it's too hard. You know, and quite often myself and the team that talk and meet with potential franchisees, we actually say to them, look, if your only driver is about making money, go and invest your money elsewhere. You know, this is not a quick win franchise. This is about building a really solid foundation, building a great culture, and building a great team to be able to then do a really good job with the people that we care for. So there are other opportunities that I believe are more suited to those individuals that just are looking at bottom line.
Of course, yeah.
Bottom line's important, though. I'll say that, you know, and you know, it is a business, and we are looking for people who want to run a business and make a good return, but the two things have to come hand in hand.
Of course. I like how you've dealt with that it's a reward for what you do, not why you do what you do. You know, and you need to be commercially successful. You know, someone once said to me that the secret for good franchising is happy, successful franchisees. You know, the word happy has got a lot of meanings, and you know, it's always going to be up and down. It's always going to be tough. It's always going to require hard work. And success will, you know, again, you know, be not a straight line as such. But it's important to understand the drivers, what you're looking for, because again, if you're looking at this as something you're thinking about doing, I think you've got to think, is that my driver as well? You know?
Yeah, and I guess the happiness is a result of the expectations that you manage in the beginning. So if somebody is unhappy, that's because they've bought a franchise that they weren't expecting it to be what it is. If they're happy, then obviously it's delivering on the results and the expectations that you said it would be. You know, for us, the first couple of years, you said it before, and I should imagine this is with most businesses, not just our business. You know, it's about putting the foundations in place and learning and growing that kind of baseline for you to then build the business thereafter. And I'd say that's similar to resales as well. When you go into a resale, you know, the learning curve is really steep, and you've got to get in there, and you've got to, you know, settle the team and really show the team that you are in it for the right reasons to then develop and grow them. So, you know, I think if you're going into any business and you think it's just going to make you a load of money from day one, I think that would be a kind of a mismanagement of expectation personally.
Yeah, absolutely. Expectations are really important in this. Transparency, couldn't even say it then, but it's really important, you know, that people understand what it is that they're going to get into, you know, and that it's hard work and there are ups and downs. I often come back to this, that franchising is just being given a bag of tools if you take it simplistically, right? And if you're a carpenter and you've got a hammer and a saw, they may be the best jobs for cutting wood and hammering in nails, but they don't do it on their own. And if you use the wrong end of the hammer, it's not going to work as well. So it's very simplistic, but that's what we deliver as franchisors, support, but the right tools for the job. What I'd like to get into now, because again, if you are watching this and you've been thinking this is a business for me, it's good to understand what the next steps are. So that sort of prospect journey. So you pick up the phone, and what happens from the point you make first contact. This isn't about running the day-to-day, but this is about that journey. What happens after you make contact?
So from the initial inquiry, you would expect, well, I've got an amazing team, and we call them the franchise development team, FranDev. You know, Luke and Amy have been in the business for a very long time, and they've seen the business grow and scale. So when you're engaging with that team, you're engaging with knowledge and experience. So you know, you would engage with one of those guys. They'd have an initial conversation. In that conversation, there will be a mutual assessment of, is this right franchise for me? And Luke or Amy would be, is this the right person for us? You know, and we have a number of questions that actually would filter out some of the people that we're speaking to based on that conversation we've just had. Is this purely about money, or, you know, do they actually understand why we're different? From that conversation, you'll be asked to fill in a form, and then we'd be invited into a discovery day where you will learn the ins and outs of our franchise opportunity, and over the years, Harvey, I've always believed that we give everything up front, like don't hide anything, be open and transparent with everything, because this is a huge decision for that individual that's coming into the brand, and it's a huge decision for the brand to make sure that they are the right partner for us. And so I would always make sure that that discovery day is fully informed and transparent with every piece of information you can possibly give. They would then go away with a list of actions. So those list of actions is, we ask them to compose a business plan, we ask them to speak to franchisees, we do a psychometric profile assessment, we get them to speak to the banks, we have ask them to look at our franchise agreement, because I believe and speak to their family fundamentally as well, and their family and friends, and say, do you see me running this type of franchise? I think until they've done all of those things, they won't be able to decide whether this is the right franchise opportunity for them. And for us, each of those gates or parts of the process is an assessment for us about whether they also fit us. So, this process can take anything from 3 to 6 months, sometimes longer. Once they've come out of that first stage, and we've had feedback from franchisees and all the other stakeholders, if we're all happy, we invite them to a second meeting where they would present their business plan. We go through their psychometric profile, we look at their financials and their personal survival budget, and that is with the exec team at national office as well as the fan dev team. So they are getting to meet us and understand our strategy and our leadership and where we're going, and also an opportunity to reconnect with the national office team as well. I think after that point, we all then have a conversation: is this right for us, and is that right for you? And then hopefully, at some point there'll be somebody, which there is, that is actually right for the brand, and that's when we then offer them the opportunity to join the network, which is then the next part of their onboarding process.
Fantastic. And again, if really good to hear all of the steps you take within that, the conversations. You appear to take a lot of care to try and not only find the right people for the business, but to make sure the business hopefully is right. We can't always get it right, but you clearly take a lot of care in that journey. Where does the commitment sit within that? Is there either a legal or a financial commitment within these steps, or does that all come towards the end?
It comes towards the end. Like for us, so we asked them to sign an NDA because what we're showing is IP.
Sure.
And I was actually talking to a very well-established peer in the sector the other day about this part of the process. Even at that point, when we've offered them the franchise, we have what we call an intent to proceed process. They would sign and pay a deposit.
But that's right at step 5 there.
Yeah, but they've not signed a franchise agreement or handed over a franchise fee at this point. So at this point, we can still both sides walk away. Okay. And I think this is really important. And some people have questioned this a couple of times, but I believe this is what's made Home Instead so successful, is that there are occasions where we then invite them to their first training program, which is a 1-day training program. And that is our opportunity to really see them in action and then to see us in action. And there has been occasions, Harvey, where we've sat down afterwards and we've said, actually, these people aren't right for us, even though we've got them to that stage. And we've told them that at that stage, and we've handed their deposit back and they've walked away. Okay. And I think because of that, we've been successful in the recruitment of our franchisees, and those individuals have really come into the new owner training focused on the fact that it is right for them. One of the things that you don't want to do is have people come to training, they've signed a franchise agreement, it's felt like a whirlwind, and they're all of a sudden going like, where the hell am I and what's going on, and they're questioning their decision during that training week. Yeah. I think if you take the time and effort and focus in that first part, when they do come to new owner training, even though it's daunting, like you've just probably made one of the biggest decisions of your life. Yeah. You're hoping that they are clear and focused on what then is ahead of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said there about getting different perspectives as well as part of this pre-commitment journey. And I think this is really important, that you speak to your family, you speak to your friends, you speak to other franchisees, you speak to other franchise organizations, you get all these perspectives, and you're presenting your business plan, your financials, you've done all of these things, gone through this process with you guys. And even when you've got to the point then of signing the sort of pre-agreement part and paying a deposit, even if then there's something that's not right, you're saying that still the deposit can be returned and they can walk away from the opportunity.
Yeah.
So what I always love to see, and it's always great to hear that people can get a lot of information. Yes, of course, an NDA because there's IP in there, but you can get a lot of information to support, hopefully, you're making the right decision, because it's really important for people to be well informed to make that right decision. So I love it. Great, fantastic. Scott's come back with something here. Well, welcome to the show, Scott. Scott is, of course, EF100 Elite Franchise. Been to the awards many times, and I know you haven't been successful, of course. Scott's got really interesting on how passionate you need to be to make this work. What is the best way a franchisee can balance delivering compassionate, human-centered care and practical challenges of staffing, training, and business operations? Great question, Scott, actually, because I think sometimes people can come in with the dream and the hope and that they just really just want to deliver this. But there are some practicalities that you've got to balance out that can affect that dream or can certainly make it more challenging.
Yeah, and we've always used the analogy of a seesaw at Home Instead, and what I mean by that is, and we talk to prospects about this when they're coming through the process with us. So it's quite an interesting line to kind of to focus on, because if you are too focused on the care and the quality and the compliance and being compassionate, you could almost end up being like a charity. Mm. If you are too focused on the bottom line, and that's really all that you are focused on, the quality of care that what makes us so great is then forgotten about, and you end up being quite corporate. And so the skill with when we're looking for franchisees and when you're in the business is like, how do you make sure that those two things are equally balanced? And I'm not going to say it's that easy, right? So it can be challenging because, you know, in that first period as well, you've got a loan from the bank and you need to make the business work, but you've also got to really make sure that you're delivering a quality model. And so it kind of goes back to that point that you mentioned earlier about the toolkit. Like we say it's an instruction book, and it's the most expensive instruction book you'll ever buy, your operations manual. And sometimes with franchisees in their early days, or when they're worried about their finances, they may want to kind of cut corners or take a contract from the council that doesn't fit with our model. And one of the things that we always say is just trust in the model. It works. You know, you've got 260 people that have walked this path already. So make sure that you stay focused on sticking to the instruction book and believe that what you are doing is the right thing. We have a very clear roadmap for franchisees on each stage of their franchise journey. So when they're balancing the challenges of being compassionate versus needing to grow their business, it goes back to what we said. You like stick to the model. I think that's the whole benefit of buying a franchise.
Yes, absolutely. You can come back to something that hopefully has got a solid foundation and can guide you. Because I think in business, it's sometimes easy to lose your way, get involved in the day-to-day rather than working on your business. But we all know that franchise businesses have a better success rate than non-franchise businesses. That's not to say that franchising always works out and always succeeds, but it statistically has a better chance. So that's fantastic.
Much better.
Yeah, it's considerably better. You know, when you look at the BFA report recently, it's somewhere around 90% success rate, compared with probably somewhere around, I think, 40% for a non-franchise business. So yeah, fantastic. We're gonna get into the sort of the day-to-day, what a day looks like in the business. But I'm gonna ask you why you think franchising was the route that made the business successful. Because at that beginning stage, you know, you had a great business idea, this people-centric, relationship-centric care, and something that was very different. Why do you think franchising was the model, and why has it continued to be the model of success for the business?
Yeah. So I'm not going to claim that this was my decision, by the way. So obviously I joined Trevor on his campaign. And obviously under Martin's leadership, we've continued with the franchise. Martin, the CEO, we've continued with the franchise model. I think for me, I love franchising anyway. I just think it's one of the most amazing roles to have, where you're meeting individuals who have got a burning ambition to run a business, but they just don't know how to. And you're saying, do you know what? If you bring your skills and your ambition and your kind of desire, we will give you the tools on the instruction book, and then you will be able to create this amazing business in your local community. But I think for Home Instead in particular, if you think about, you know, one of the things we were doing was we were radically trying to influence the way that care was being delivered across the UK. If we'd have done that through company-owned offices, we would have needed a huge amount of financial upfront kind of cash, I guess.
Yeah.
But we also would have needed to find, I think, which is the more important, the individuals with the same passion that reflects in us. And that's quite difficult if you're not doing it with a franchise model, because when people invest in a brand, whether it's yours or somebody else's, you know that they've got this passion and desire to make that really work. And I think that is one of the magical things about franchising. So I think franchising is amazing for scale quickly, finding brilliant people who want to invest their own money into making a business that's theirs, and also just creating this movement across a particular market about the brand or the offering that they've got. And that is, like I say, that's the magic of franchising, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, completely. When you have a good idea, it's the power to grow a business, where not only obviously for the franchisor, it frees up some of that capital in terms of how you're growing it. There is that, of course, but you are growing with other people who are having businesses. You're growing together. And, you know, with the way franchising works, the success of the franchisee means the success of the franchisor as well. So it's fantastic. What we're going to do now is we're going to get into what a day in the life of a franchisee looks like, because it's a great way, again, if you're looking at this as a potential investment and a potential thing that you want to do, picture what that day-to-day looks like. I think it is a really refreshing and good way of deciding whether something's going to be right for you. But before we do that, if you have just joined us, this is Franchising Brand Stories, and today we are hearing the wonderful story of Home Instead with the lovely Ruth Brown. And Franchising Brand Stories is brought to you by FranRec, specialist staff and executive recruiters to the UK franchise industry. So let's get on with that right now. So we're now going to put you in the shoes, or under the hat, let's say, I'm going to use that expression, of a franchisee. So I imagine it's very varied, but try and give us an example of what a day might look like.
I guess I'm going to have to answer this in two different ways, if that's okay, because of how mature we are. We've got your startup franchise and you've got your resale type franchisee. So you know, as a startup franchisee in a new territory, you know, you basically start out with an office and a care manager and somebody within the admin role, and your role is very much focused on the business. So you'd be doing the sales, the marketing, out meeting all the different referral providers in your community, setting up your finances, doing your invoicing, and just really growing the business side of the model. The care manager who you recruit is the experienced person that comes in to run the care ops. So they will be finding the right people to deliver care and training them. They would go out and see the clients that have made an inquiry about the service and do the care consultation and write the care plan, and then schedule the care and the care pros, so the clients and the care pros, to ensure that the match is right for then that care to be delivered in a really high quality way. But as you can imagine, that can only, as a franchisee, that can only be that role for so long before you start to scale. So the way the model works is that you would recruit more people to support the care manager, and over time your role becomes less being in and more being focused on managing the people within the business. So that then kind of links me to the resale side. Like normally the resales that you have with us, that you would acquire, there'd be an already established team in place, most likely established routines and processes. often the new person coming in wants to put their own stamp on things. So obviously there would be a review of that. But the role of a person coming in to manage a resale would be to set vision, create a great culture, manage the people, develop the people, and have a very clear strategy. And one of the things that we ask everybody is just being a leader of all things older person in their community. And so the role, like I said, the franchisee role does develop and change as the business grows. But we are looking for people that are really wanting to lead from the front, and be passionate about what we do.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, the word passion keeps coming up, and I'm so glad it does, because these words often accidentally come across, or they come across because it's what you feel, and you talk about them because it's what you feel. So it's very clear to me that that's the case. I think one of the things I think it's really good to talk about is support and challenges. You know, franchising is hard work. Okay, it's definitely hard work. It's not an easy road. You know, you have to put in the effort. There are going to be ups and downs. So how do you support your franchisees with the challenges that they face?
Yeah. So we have, and our scale has grown at the national office. But one of the things that we've always done is recruit national office team ahead of the curve. So we have about 65 people in our national office team. And they've all got different skill sets and strengths, and we've had to develop new roles as the world has changed. So I've already mentioned we've got a franchise development team. They look after prospects, the onboarding journey, any people that are on their exit journey, and also just kind of managing kind of the process of people thinking about maybe exiting. We've then got a business development team. They're like the people that go out and have business development conversations with franchisees. They run a portfolio of a particular stage of the franchise journey, and so they're the first go-to for all things about growth and sales and business development. We then have a quality and standards team that's very much, obviously, as the title says, focused on making sure that the businesses are delivering home instead care to the highest quality standard and supporting them to do so. And then we've got a marketing team, then an IT team. But I think one of the things that we've always done is we've tried to tailor, which is the model that I talked about before, we've tried to tailor the support around the stage of the journey that the franchisee is on. Linking to the challenges, as I mentioned earlier, we are in a multi-unit journey at the moment, and so we are currently learning and understanding what does support look like for multi-units, because it is very different to what support looks like for a single territory. You know, they're going to have a team of people that we need to work with rather than working with the franchisee. So that is currently a support model that's in flight that we're building out. And I guess as a franchisee grows, their needs change, and it's kind of like, how do we then fulfill the requirements that they have as their businesses grow when they've learnt the model and they need something slightly different. So then that's when we look at external support as well through different consultants and coaches that we've always encouraged.
That's fantastic. I mean, if you mentioned earlier about referral parties, and I'm now thinking about a new territory and a new operator.
Yeah.
And so they haven't got anybody that they're looking after at that point. Does your business development team help them in finding the business?
Kind of. So like, we train the franchisee and the care manager to understand who to go and speak to, what to say, how to have those quality conversations. In the early days, we go out and do that with them. But actually, people buy from people. So when you're talking to a referral partner, they want to know that the person that they're referring the client to is actually of good standing and good quality, and actually believes in quality care, because it's their reputation and name that they're putting on the line when they're referring a particular brand to a particular family or individual that needs care. So we train the know-how, and we give them the skills and the confidence to do it, but they then need to go out and do that themselves.
No, that's fantastic. It's good to hear that. I mean, you've clearly got a big team of people there that help all those different departments, and I think it's important, especially on that business development side, because maybe the people that come in with the passion for giving that care might not necessarily think, or might not necessarily have maybe the sales skills or those types of skills. So it's great to know that you get that support. You know, that's one of the tools in the toolbox.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things just to point out for care and for Home Instead is it is sales, whereas we have to have a sales mindset, but you're not hard selling, you're not selling a product or a thing to somebody. When you're out either speaking to a referral partner or a family, it is something that's needed. And it's like, how do you then present what's needed in the best possible light that they actually really understand the value of the service that you're offering? And I think that's the skill set that we're trying to train into people. It's that the art of selling, but actually doing it where it actually isn't selling, if that makes sense. Like, you know, because
makes complete sense.
When you're dealing with a loved one that needs care, you don't want to feel like sold to, but you need to understand what the options are and why that service is priced as it is, to understand the value for money that's on offer.
Definitely, 100%. You know, everybody to a degree is selling at every point in their life, really. You know, but it's selling does exactly what you said. It doesn't mean what sometimes people think it means. You know, when you're having a conversation with somebody, making sure they're aligned, making sure that you can deliver what it is that they want in a caring and kind way, and that they get on with you and they think they're going to get a professional service. That's not selling, that's just aligning things, and they will make their decision to use you, and hopefully everything will go well. But that's the tools that you're giving somebody to do that job of, in inverted commas, selling, but it's not quite that. We're going to get to my favorite bit of this. So this is my favorite part. Clearly in 20 years, you know, and with all of these franchisees, you must have seen some real characters and some real life-changing stories. I think particularly in care. Care is one of these businesses where it's a three-tier thing. You are changing lives as a franchisor by developing this system, by making it relationship-centric. Your franchisees are changing lives. It's changing their lives. The staff, the caregivers, their lives are being changed when they can genuinely spend that time, you know, and give companionship. And of course, then your wonderful people that you're helping. There must be lots of stories, but do any stick out in your mind?
I think quite a lot, actually. And interestingly, I actually said this to somebody this week. I've got the best job in the world because I am helping people run successful businesses who are actually making a difference to vulnerable people in their and helping them stay at home. I just sometimes I don't know what else could be better than that. But things that stick out, I've got examples where, you know, when we were talking about just trusting in the model, I had a particular franchisee not so long ago come up to me at conference. So she'd had a slower start, and I just kept saying, look, trust me, it will work. The work that you're putting in now, the rewards will pay off after. Two years after, she walked up to conference, she just put her arms around me and she said, you were so right, it is working. And because of you, I'm able to send my children to private school. I can do all these different things. You've changed my life. But more importantly, you've been able to help me fulfill my ambition of running my own business. So, you know, it is what we do, isn't it, I guess? But when you have people come and say that to you, that is it's pretty cool, I've got to say.
Absolutely. I mean, and something, stick with the model that you said there, you know, trust in that model. You know, if you get your franchising model right and you believe in it and you stick with it, that's a great example of that working out. And it goes back to what you said, that the success is a result of what you do, not the reason that you do what you do. You know, and you keep doing what you do in the right way and keep following a model that you have passion for and you believe in, the success then comes, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm gonna throw in a little curveball before we get before we get to the last part of today's story, which is talking about the future. And that is, if you had a magic wand, is there something you would change about your industry? That's my question to you. Is there something that you would like to see differently in the industry?
Yeah, and I'm not sure whether this is just for our industry. It's no secret that not so long ago, I was on Parliament marching with the social care providers across the UK with Providers Unite. You know, October, the world changed for our sector. We employ lots of people on low hours, and what that meant with the national insurance changes has meant that our franchisees and the franchisor have had to find ways to cover the extra costs that they're now having to pay to recruit the people that are delivering care. And if you actually think about what that means, like the social care system is actually holding up the healthcare system, but by putting this extra tax on them, basically, we're putting a lot of private businesses who are in the social care space under a lot of pressure. And so if there's one magic wand, it would be, and we, you know, we got it into the House of Lords and I got batted back, is like that would just be heard. Like we can't really be dealing with any more pressures on kind of overheads like we're having to deal today, because all that ends up happening is some of it is having to be passed on to the client. We're not able to recruit the people that we want to recruit in the way that we want to recruit them. So sorry if I'm on my soapbox, but you know, that would be my magic wand, is just to understand the impact of social care that the government has had over the recent months.
I think it's absolutely valid, and I think that anybody listening to this can relate to it. You know, it's better that just because the government think by putting it on, you know, one particular part of it, it goes right away down and it affects the client. So I think it's a great thing to wave your magic wand for that. So brilliant, love it.
By the way, is that the part of the deal? Do you have one? Do you have a magic wand?
I'm afraid not. I'll try and get one. It's a good idea. I'll invest in a magic wand. So we have come to the end of the main part of today's story. And if you have just joined us today, we heard the story, or we heard what's under the hat of Home Instead with the lovely Ruth Brown. If we didn't get to all your comments, we can go back and get to those after the show. So we are now going to jump back in the time machine, and we are going to now go forward in time. And this is the time where you're going to give us the franchising brand stories exclusive. Okay, so we're going to talk about now what's coming up in the future for Home Instead. You know, what exciting things have you got planned and in the coming months and years?
Okay, so I'm going to start short term and then move out. So you may have noticed or not, I don't know, that Home Instead is just rebranded. We felt that the brand that we were operating under in terms of the colour and the style and the logo had become dated. So we rebranded a few weeks ago, and so the next 12 months really is about how can we really use this rebrand to propel ourselves forward, to shout about why Home Instead is different, the fact that care at home is an option for families, and because unfortunately care homes still seems to be the first option that they go to. So it's really much around building that kind of rebrand out, continuing to develop the support that we offer to our franchisees. I think I mentioned earlier, we know we're on a multi-unit journey. That doesn't mean that we're not looking for people who want to run single territories, but it is an option now. So what does that support and structure look like as we continue to move forward, looking at technology and AI through the model? So how can we use technology and AI to really modernise the way that care is being delivered across the UK? And I suppose the future aim, which is our mission at Home Instead, is going back to the piece I mentioned. We want home care to be the default care norm. We want Home Instead to be the brand of choice, and we want to be a brand that people want to work with and work for. So I guess that would be our North Star as we move through the next few years. And there's just a lot of work that we need to do just to either modernise the model, use the new rebrand to propel ourselves forward, and continue to find amazing people to come on the journey with us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, fantastic. What I will say just before we finish, if you have watched this and you are enjoying this and you want to find out more, please scan the QR code top left And that's going to take you to a form where you can fill out what you think and make a bit of an inquiry as to this brand and find out a bit more. So please do that. So we have now come to the end of today's show. I'd like to thank everybody who has joined us here live. I'd like to thank you, Ruth, for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Let's have a look at what's happening next week on our sister show, on the Franchise Show, next Tuesday, 12:15 EST, 5:15 GMT. We are going to be talking franchise succession planning with the lovely Kevin Juser. So please join us for that one. And we will be back for Franchising Brand Stories on the 15th of May, where we're going to be talking to Mini First Aid. So we will be finding out what's under the hat of that one. So until next time, my friends, take very good care. Cheerio.